Okay, welcome again, everyone, to CSE 204 Online, and we'll. My plan today is to talk mostly about the group project. There's been a few questions about that, so I want to make sure I clear everything up because not everything is able to be made perfectly clear. Not everything is able to be made perfectly clear through the text-based communication, the feedback that you guys got on your group project stuff. So I want to go ahead and clear some of that up and talk through some of what the expectations are for the final project and for how you'll submit it and do that. And so I've posted these slides. I've edited them some from the original slides that I had prepared for this because the original was planned on you guys giving presentations in class. And so obviously that's not going to I don't see how that's happening. As far as I know, you guys are not coming back to the university, to the physical campus for this semester. And so we don't want to put this off until next semester or the summer or anything like that. So we're gonna go ahead and modify the original plan a little bit so that we can still achieve the same result, the same goal that I would like for you guys to achieve. Okay, so you know what? I didn't share the slides. Forgot to share my screen. So let's do that. So here we go. All right, so group project. All right. And I had a quote of the day. I kind of already in there. I think you guys know this man, right? It's one of my favorite quotes from him. Science is the most reliable guide in life, and and so trying to teach my son that, especially you can imagine a small child, trying to remind him over and over again to wash his hands, especially right now, is he doesn't like doing that. And so we keep trying to tell him about why it's important and talk to him about science and stuff, and just a little bit hard for a young person like that to understand these things. All right, but you guys have been developing a product for me, your customer, for who's been acting as your customer for this semester, and hopefully you guys have been using scientific principles, or at least technological principles, not just winging it, right? Not just ad hoc processing it. All right. Okay, so what are some of the details first about how we're going to do this? So the plan is still to do this the last 3 weeks of what would normally be classes. I'll finish up, let's see, this week is it's the 16th today. So I will finish up next week, and the following week will be the final 2 weeks that we'll do any kind of new lecture material. And we'll still plan on, because we're right on target to do that. We're actually a little bit ahead. In fact, if I go ahead and introduce conceptual database design today, we'll actually be a little bit ahead of where the schedule says we should be. That week that should have been midterm week really kind of helped us get ahead of things, actually. So this way I can give you more time to be able to ask questions about your group presentations and stuff like that. So the plan is to go ahead and do this presentation on Microsoft Teams. What I would like to be able to do, and I want to run a test of this with my teaching assistants from CSE 102. What I'd like to do is have your group present. Basically you would share your screen, or you would show your video or whatever on the Microsoft Teams. If that's not a possibility, if that's too, if it just doesn't work, if it doesn't work very well for us, then what I may do is ask you to do some type of video recording. You all have access to this Microsoft Teams application, I assume that that means that you would be able to form your own team with your group and be able to record a meeting that you would have. And basically what you would do is you would, like I'm doing right now, I'm recording this meeting and I'm going to upload it. And as soon as this class is over. And so what I could imagine is, as a backup plan, would be for you guys to do your own team meeting that then you would record yourself as if you were presenting. I hope that makes sense. So that would be the backup plan. That would not be that would not be the ideal for me. The ideal would be for you guys to be able to do it live so that we could ask you questions and we could have, some question and answer time. But if that's not a possibility, then we'll figure out some other way to do it. Okay. All right. So that's the plan. So basically what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that you are trying to get funding for your project. So for whatever topic it is that you chose, all right, that you are trying to do this. It's almost like a Kickstarter or some other type of funding type thing like that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to give you any money for this, but what I am going to give you is, we're going to give you a good grade if you do a good job. Like, well, that's basically how this will work out instead, right? And so what you want to do is you need to convince me. You need to convince me. You need to convince the rest of us that what you've created is worth investing in. So I'm assuming that you chose a topic that you believed in, that you thought was a good product, a good topic, and not just one that you thought would be really easy to do. But I hope that you actually wanted to find out more about how to develop such an application. And so what you need to do is you need to convince us that we should buy into this, that we should help you, right? And so if you think about that, your first report was seen by technical folks, and then maybe you submitted it to the IT department or to the or some other techie department of a company, of the potential client, and they looked over it and they said, this looks like it's something that we should look more into, that we want to possibly invest with. And so they are going to go and they're going to present it to the managerial folks and the business side folks, the business side, the managers, the investors, the shareholders, right? And so that doesn't mean that your presentation shouldn't be technological at all, because you are going to be presenting to the tech folks, right? Still. And so you need to show that you have made some improvements on what you've already shown to them, that what you showed them before was just the start, just the scratching the surface. What we're going to see now, what we're going to see at your presentation is we're going to see what you've been able to do with the extra time that you've been given. Okay, so how were you able to improve it? How were you able to fix some of the problems that were found? How were you able to add to what you already had? Okay, yeah. So, but the managerial folks, they're going to want to know what's the purpose. Like, why did you create this? Why should I invest in whatever application it is that you created? And you need to show us that you have a plan for how you're going to get there. How will you achieve the goal that you have? And so what technology will you use? What database system will you use? Will you use MySQL? Will you use what type of front end? Now, one thing that I want to make sure to remind you of is that this is a database class, and so the primary thing we want to know about is the database specifications of what the database looks like. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't show us anything at all related to the user interface. Now, could it be a mock-up using Microsoft Paint, using hand-drawn diagrams for your user interface? Absolutely. There would be no problem with that. Just that you would think about, okay, to make this functionality happen, to make this search result, the user wants to search for uh, products on Amazon, and they type in this, and this is the query that's run, and but this is we would have this screen where they would have this text field and an OK button, and they click the OK button, and it runs this query. Now we need to see the query, right? And so it runs this query, and then these are the results that get returned. And then this is maybe how we would think about displaying them, because you're not going to show your user, you're not going to show them the grid layout like MySQL would show you. You would want to take that data and you would want to show it in a way that's meaningful and understandable to your user, right? Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Okay, so you should have, as part of your presentation, a summarized results of your fact-finding techniques. What fact-finding techniques did you use? Like I said, I expected you guys to use research to discover the details of your database. So, but you may have used others. Some of you may have had a friend that works over at the Technokent, and you went and talked to them about their product because it was similar to what you were trying to create. Some of you may have had family members who work in an industry that's similar to what you were trying to create, and so you may have talked to them. So just stuff like that. Right? So how did you get to the data that you had? Your final ER diagram, you need to make sure you show that to us at some point during your presentation. Now, when I say it should be modified from the original, that was a request that the customer made to every group. Okay, the customer made a series of requests, and one of those came out as that they wanted some expansions made. Now, the expansion that was requested should modify your ER diagram in some way. Okay, if it doesn't, or if you are confused, or if you're saying, oh, I don't see how this modifies my ER diagram, my ER diagram is going to stay the exact same as it was, then either one, I did not understand your original ER diagram, and I made a change based on forcing some way to change your diagram, or you're not understanding my request. So if one of those two things is true, then you need to contact me, and we need to talk this out. Okay. I have had groups in the past that did not understand this aspect of what the request was, that the customer was requesting. In some cases, the customer is requesting your application. Actually, I think maybe all of your cases. I don't think that there's any group that I left out in this. That the customer is asking your product to do something that you didn't initially make it do. That it's something extra. So it would be like, Amazon started out as a product ordering and delivering service, and now Amazon is one of the largest web hosting companies in the world. They didn't start out as a web hosting company, but they morphed into that. They became that. And so that's kind of what's going on with your group, in a sense, is that you said, this is what I intend to do. The customer came in and said, oh, it'd be really cool is if we did this also. And so I've had groups in the past that did not understand that or weren't willing to do that. And they basically, as part of their presentation, said, yeah, the customer asked for this and we decided not to do it. I will let you know that from 10 years of industry experience, customers don't like it when you say that what you wanted we're not going to do. Now, some customers, some customers just say, well, we'll just take our business elsewhere, right? And they'll go find some other company that is willing to do what they've asked for. But there is the rare time where whatever it is the customer is asking is just impossible. Like they are asking for something that just cannot be delivered in the time frame that they want. And so if that's the case for you, if you think that what the customer is asking for is just, it's beyond your possibility for what you can do right now, present that. Tell them, but you need to tell them why. You need to tell the customer, you asked for this, it's not possible, and here's why. Okay? So, um, but make sure that your reasoning is solid and valid. Because again, like I said, if a customer can say, well, I'll just go find another company to do it, they oftentimes do. And then that's, uh, yeah, that's not very good for your company, for our company, if we are not able to deliver the things that the customer has requested. Okay. So moving on, in addition to the expansion, the customer asked for a series of uh, functionality. I can't remember the exact way I worded it right now off the top of my head, but they wanted like a list of this and or a list of that or a way to update this or a way to change that or a way to add. So it's this number is five. It's 5 items, right? That the customer said that we want to the ability. We want to make sure that you have the ability to do that. All that is that is 5 queries. Okay, that is two selects, at least the way that I imagine how I would do. Now, this is not the only way. There are ways you can do this. Should be 2 selects and then a series of combination of update, insert, or delete. Okay, um, and it all depends on how you want to organize your data. So, for example, removing something can be deleting it from the database. It could also be setting a flag to making something invisible. So, for example, I've been, one thing that uh, I've told many people, and many people have told me over the years, is what you have to remember is that things on social media, things on Facebook, things on different social media platforms, they never go away. Even if you delete them, they're still out there. And a lot of times, when we delete posts on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, they don't actually delete. They just change some flag to make it invisible, and it's still sitting out there in a database somewhere, or it's still sitting out there on a server somewhere. And so removing doesn't have to be deleting. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. But the main thing I want to get at with this is what you need to do, what your group will have to do, is I need you to write the 5 queries, whatever those queries are. I need you to show me those. I need you to show us those 5 queries, and we need to see how your user interface might be able to access those queries. Okay. Um, Again, you don't have to have a working user interface. That is not the purpose of this project. The purpose of this project is the primary thing I want to see is can you write the SQL queries? And if you can, of course, that's great. That's what we want. But then we also need to be thinking about, well, how would we even access it? How would we get to that query? And yeah, or whatever the language is. If there's at least one group that is not using an SQL-based database, and that's fine. I gave approval to that, but you do need to show me what code you would use to make those 5 queries happen. By the way, those 5 queries, that's a minimum, right? That's not the only thing the customer wants to do. I mean, if somebody was making an Amazon site and I said I wanted a query that could search for a particular product category, that's great, but is that the only thing that Amazon does? Well, of course not. Amazon does lots of other things. And so think about that this is a minimum, but we need to know what your whole product is going to do. Okay. All right. Okay. Each group member should contribute meaningfully to the presentation. Each group member should give some type of input to the presentation. obviously, if we are unable to give a live presentation on this Microsoft Teams thing, then questions from the audience is going to be difficult. I do have a backup plan in place for how we can do something like that, where you would answer questions from your audience. Your audience is the class. So I'm expecting that everybody from the class will be here. If we give these presentations live, that I'm expecting that everybody from the class will be here and be prepared to ask questions. Okay, and be prepared to pay attention. Your classmates, the other students in this class, they've worked hard on this project. You've worked hard on your project. They've worked hard on theirs, and they deserve your respect and attention. And they deserve for you to come to their presentation, even if not physically, if you come online, they deserve for you to come and for you to pay attention to the things that they have to say. Okay. If any particular member does not substantially contribute, I will most likely ask that person a question directly. And basically, the last thing I want is for some group member to get up and say, "Hi, I'm Joseph, and now Jane is going to present the ER diagram." And then after Jane's done presenting the ER diagram, then I get back up and I say, "And now Jim is going to present the user interface." Yeah, that's the last thing I want. That is not contributing meaningfully. Okay. Now, what I've seen some groups do is they've taken their 4 group members, they've divided the presentation up into 4 parts, like ER diagram, user interface, SQL queries, and fact-finding techniques, maybe to start off, fact-finding techniques to start off. And then each of their members presents that specifically. Okay, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only part of the project that they worked on, but they say, you know what, we're each going to take a part like that. We're going to present like that. Okay, that's one possibility. It's probably one of the easiest ones as far as flow is concerned in a presentation. But it's not the only way to do a presentation like this. Okay, but so one thing I do want to point out here is make sure you have your slides and your demo. You will need to show us a demo of again, you're not having a user interface. You don't have to have a user interface prepared, but you know, a demo of some kind of how you ran this query on your MySQL database, and this is the results that you got back. You know, something like that. But make sure you practice that well in advance. Some of the slowest presentations have been, you know, students who kind of get up there that day and this is the first time they've ever practiced it, right? So I would definitely encourage you to find time to get together, even if you get together like on Teams, or I know all of you guys are on WhatsApp. WhatsApp allows you to have up to 4 people on a video call at once, and so you could do like a WhatsApp video call, and you guys could just practice and talk about how you're going to do things. Okay, definitely encourage you to do that. All right, again, I said this in the last slide, but I'm going to say it again. You are expected to attend the other group's presentations. Right? You will be expected to contribute by asking relevant questions, and the way you ask relevant questions is by paying attention. At this point, I have obviously this would be much easier to do in class if we were sitting in a classroom for this, but I do plan on a portion of your individual grade for your group project to be based on your individual level of participation as an audience member. So you don't come, you don't attend, and you will get a lower grade than some of your fellow group members who did come and did attend and did participate by asking questions. Okay? All right. Let's see. Final note again, practice, be prepared to present. Don't just think that you're going to get up there that day and everything's just going to come flowing out and you're going to be ready to present on the day of. Expect the unexpected. Yeah, basically, this would definitely be true if we were presenting this in class. Uh, you know, you get up there and you forget the adapter to be able to present to be able to connect your computer to the projector, or you know you forgot your charger for your computer and the battery's low. Uh, you know, things like that happen. Uh, the thing we are going to do is that we're going to order the groups randomly unless I have a volunteer. By the way, if you want to volunteer to go first, please contact me. I will put you up first, and you can go ahead and know in advance when you're going to present. Okay, but if I don't have any volunteers, then I will basically choose randomly. I will run a script to randomly choose a group to go present. Okay, and finally, all this stuff has been very serious. We've talked about a lot of serious stuff here, but have fun with this. Like, you have worked hard on this project. You hopefully have put a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of effort into figuring out how to do things and learning things that you didn't know before. Okay. And so we want to see how much pride you have in something that you've done that with, that you've put a lot of energy into. Okay. All right, guys. So is there any questions? Any comments? I'm going to come back over here and see if anybody's. Okay. All right. So, okay. So let's go ahead, and what we'll do then is I'll at least, since there's only a few of you, I'm not sure where everybody is, but what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the conceptual database design. Okay. Because we'll at least introduce kind of somewhat as a way of review the different phases of database design, and we'll introduce the conceptual. Okay. So the whole point is we are going to design a database not ad hoc. We're going to follow a process for how to create a database from requirements into eventually physical design. Now, the parts of the physical database are things like what type of server to use. But physical isn't just physical in the sense of like hardware. It's also stuff like software. It's what type of database are we going to use? Are we going to use Oracle? Are we going to use MySQL? Those kinds of things. Right? And so that's what we're trying to get to. But before we get there, we're going to develop our conceptual and logical designs as well. Okay? We're going to talk a little bit about how to document the process and how end users play the role. Like how are users involved in this whole process? By the way, I love the whole software development process. I love software engineering. So this is some of my favorite stuff that we're going to be talking about, as far as not just the writing of the code or writing SQL statements in this case, but how to get to the place where we're going to do that. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about what a design methodology is necessary, because if we have a methodology, if we have a strong method to develop the tools and the documentation that we're going to create, then we have a much better chance of succeeding, not only with a solid, in this case, database, but not only with a solid system, but on top of that, it can be done a lot faster as well. One of the hardest things for uh, managers and programmers alike, one of the hardest things for them to believe, for them to get into when it comes to getting a methodology, getting a software process, a software development process in place, is a lot of times programmers, we think of the writing of code as being that's what the job is, that's what it's all about. And so anything that takes time away from the writing of the code becomes to us stuff that's unnecessary, stuff that doesn't need to happen, right? And so, or just kind of a waste of time, right? And so, um, yeah, and so that's one of the things that's hardest for them to have buy-in on, is that we need to develop the process because that will help make the code happen faster. Um, I used to have analogies. I can't think of one right now off the top of my head, but I used to have analogies for uh, how this works, how this why this is important. But basically, uh, the thing is that when you're developing the process, you're taking time away from the writing of the code or the building of the system to plan the writing of the code and building of the system. And if done well, then what happens is that it ends up costing us less in the long run. It ends up costing us less time in the long run, less money, less resources. And so, yeah, you know what? We don't get to start writing code as soon as maybe we would like, but we don't spend a lot of time on the other side fixing badly written code, right? And that's what the important part of a design methodology is. Okay. So as far as database is concerned, we're going to go through our 3 phases. This week we're introducing conceptual design, and then we'll get into logical and physical. Let's see, we'll finish up conceptual next week, and we'll get into logical and physical. Okay. So what are the 3? So we're going to construct a model of the data used in an enterprise. What that means is we're going to construct a model. Well, you should know that you've already made a model, all right? An ER model. So the output of the conceptual database design is going to be an ER model. Okay. All right. And so then the input from any phase is, hold on just a second. Okay, I'm back. The output of any phase is going to be the input to the next phase. So the output of the conceptual phase is going to be the ER model. The input to the logical phase is going to be an ER model. And then the output of the logical is going to be another thing we'll talk about. It's the data dictionary. Okay. And then we'll talk about that when the logical database design, when we get there. Right. And then finally, the output of that logical phase is going to be the input to the physical database design. And you know what the output of the physical database design is going to be? It's going to be a realized database with a lot of cool stuff like file organizations and indexes and the actual tables. And so that's when we'll finally get to what we actually want to get. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about some critical success factors. So what you're going to see, work interactively with users as much as possible. You're going to see us talk about users a lot. In fact, the end point, the moment that we know we can move from one phase to the next, from conceptual to logical, from logical to physical, when we know that is going to be strongly based on, do the users agree? Does someone from the customer side, so if we're a software development company making a database for another company, for an external company, someone from their side, probably IT folks, but maybe some managers as well, maybe some business folks as well, they are going to sign off on it. They're going to say, yeah, this, we approve of this. And before we can move to the next phase, we're going to have to get approval that this is what that they wanted to have. Structured methodology, make sure we are following a process. I've talked about the ad hoc process a number of times in this class. The ad hoc process is, again, it's how we all wrote our first programs, our 101, 102 programs. It's how we write those programs. And so it's not a structured process. It's sit down and start typing code out, right? Start seeing, why does it work? Why does it not work? So let's see. We're going to combine normalization, conceptualization into things. Okay. And we're going to use diagrams as much as possible, because remember, one of the things that this is going to be used for is we are going to ask our users to sign off on, yeah, I'm okay with this. Yeah, this works for me. Well, the thing is, a lot of our users may not know SQL. They may not know databases. They may not know how things work as far as the technical side of things. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to show them in a format that they can understand. And a lot of people understand models, right? Understand visual representations of things. Okay. One thing you're probably going to have to do is you're going to have to be willing to repeat steps. You're going to have to be willing to do things that you've done before, and we're going to have to go back and maybe do it again. Okay. Especially, user may come in and take a look at what you've done, and you thought it was really good, and you thought it was exactly what they wanted, and they come in and they say, oh no, this is not what I wanted at all. I tried as much as possible not to do that with your group projects, but I did add to your group project. I did add new requirements, and so some of the steps that you did the first time, you might have to repeat. You might have to repeat some of your fact-finding techniques in order to understand how to incorporate the new thing that I asked for. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and end this lecture here, because like I said, the conceptual database design, according to the schedule, we're supposed to start that on Monday. And so since what I've already done today is to kind of introduce the whole thing, I kind of introduced all three, the conceptual, logical, and physical, all in one shot here, kind of a bird's eye view of it. And so what we'll do is on Monday, we'll move into the conceptual database design, the steps of the conceptual database design and how we get there. Then we will also, that should take us into next Thursday, I would think, as well. And then what we can do is we can move on into logical and then physical as well. Okay, so I'm gonna unshare the screen and I'll pull back to the other side over here, and I'm gonna turn my camera on so you guys can see me. Are there any questions for what we've talked about today? Is there any questions regarding the group project, what the expectations are there, or is there any questions before we get more into the weeds on conceptual database design on Monday? Okay, so I hope you guys understand everything we've asked for. Like I said, I plan sometime in the next few days to do some kind of test to figure out if you presenting live on this tool, on the Microsoft Teams application, is going to be a possibility. I hope it is. I really think that would be the best way for us to be able to present in the coming those last few weeks of class. Okay. All right. Well, have a good weekend, and I will see all of you on Monday afternoon. All right.